All right. I hope everyone is back or just settling back in. If you all could just do a raise of hands or show me your camera, I know that you all are here. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to start with introducing Nihar. And today I'm going to do all personal introductions. I'm sure you all must have read the professional ones. So Nihar is a contemporary. While I was at SEPT, he was at NID. And it's interesting, right? And we also know each other through social connections. But you never know that work will also intersect and overlap. So I've been following his amazing films, and you all have to see it. If you're foodies, you'll really have your mouths watering. So it's just this interest in some work that you are looking at each other's works. And then eventually, when we were curating these set of workshops, I realized how his work very much sort of addresses questions about documenting the ephemeral. I think one of the more fascinating things which I'm really interested to know about when he speaks today is how this exercise of documenting and disseminating recipes has led to a publication. Usually, we've seen it the other way around. We document because we want to publish and write. But here, what's happened is that the moving images has been the first medium of work. And then it has led to the publication called Baporyu. And I'll let Nihar explain what that means. So with that, I reached out to Nihar, even though he might have not been really referring to archives as a frame of practice, to just engage with his work and see how it can inspire us. So thank you so much, Nihar, for accepting our invitation. And hopefully, I think it'll be a two-way dialogue where we'll also add into your questions about the archives. Over to you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ishita, for such a sweet introduction. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Um, okay. So I will share my screen. Okay. So I have titled my thing Fables of Food because um, when you talk about food, a lot of it is not, you know, it's not accurate. It's more to do with like memory and emotion, and a lot of it gets, you know, not confusing, but it mixes with a lot of things you felt in the moment 20 years ago, for example. So, anyway, so hi, I'm Nihar, and I mostly make films and I do some small other things also. Today, I'm going to talk about my relationship with cooking. Okay. So I remember since the time I was a small child, I was like really, really interested in um, cooking. Not exactly, but I would read a lot of recipe books lying around in my house. And I remember me and my parents had this ritual that once a year we would go to crosswords since the time I was like 4 or 5, and we had a budget of 350 rupees, and we would me and a couple of my cousins, all of us had 350 rupees each to pick out whichever books we wanted to pick out, and we would spend the entire day at crosswords, and this was like a summer vacation routine. Okay, and what I remember from that time is that I would always, more often than not, pick up a recipe book and come back home with that, and just like daydream about cooking those things. I was not like allowed to go near the stove, but uh, I definitely became a part of a lot of the easier things that children could do in the kitchen, like kneading the dough or washing the rice, or you know and I also remember my mom would do a lot of these fun things with me when I was growing up, where she would like put up like 4 or 5 or 6 bowls with water in it, and it would be flavored with different things. And this would happen like once every month or once in 2 months, and I would taste a little bit of the water, and she would ask me to guess what the taste is. So initially it started with like sweet, salty, spicy, sour. bitter, all of that. And then slowly it started going into like flavoring the water with different ingredients. So one day would just be like sweet day, but it would be like sugar, jaggery, uh, you know, uh, imli chutney flavored water, different kinds of things, exploring different types of sweetness, exploring different types of sour, exploring different types of, salty or bitter or spicy flavor profiles. I don't know why she did that. My mom had a background. My mom studied in MSU in Baroda, and she also, yeah. When you were talking about Garba, I remembered how like my mom would like go crazy talking about like Baroda na Garba to બરોડાના ગરબા કરતા તો બીજા કોઈના ગરબા સારા હોય જ ના શકે type. So I mean, what it means is that Baroda's garba is like the best garba ever on earth, because I think she went to MS University, and the garba in MS University in the 70s used to be like pretty crazy. And so she studied food and nutrition over there. Maybe that's why this whole playing these games and like making me aware of different things in the kitchen just for fun. I don't think even she thought that this would grow into something that would become kind of a profession for me. But yeah, so I would just like to ask you all one question. Just like take 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds and think about like what is your first memory with food? First memory, not exactly first memory, but what is the memory that you hold closest to your heart with food? And if you could like put it in the chat box, I'm just going to exit this to read what people are writing. It could be anything from like your childhood or from like the first time you left your hometown to another city, and what would you cook on a Sunday to make yourself feel at home or whatever. Like it could be any, it could be a dish, it could be a recipe, it could be an event, it could be a date, it could be a wedding, anything that is like very, very close to your heart. And
Yeah, the mott is that sugar toy. So family for my birthday rituals. So it was since my birthday. So there is some rituals happening in my house for my birthday. So in that puja, that mott is actually been used. So yeah, it's like that. It is connected with in that way, and it's a very
hmm,
sweet like candy kind of thing. So I love that.
okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, based on whatever answers people have given, I would like to draw like a common thread between all of these that, even though you remember these things happening uh, in your past, they may or may not have happened exactly how you remember it right now. And with more time passing, you kind of start making those things bigger and bigger in your head, and you start adding narratives to it, and you start adding like oh ha us din to barish ho rahi thi, or like oh it was a cloudy day, or oh it was really sunny and I was with two of my friends. And then when you tell that story to like a third person or a fourth person, you might start adding details like, oh yeah, it was like an orange popsicle. And then you would add a detail like, oh yeah, we were wearing half pants and we used to do all of this. But the fact is that a lot of these elements in your story of the memory could have come from different parts of your life, but it all comes together to stand for one piece of food or one piece of recipe, or uh, one specific kind of smell of your mother's sari, as Geeta mentioned. So, which brings me to one of the things which I uh, had read as someone had told this to me in college when I was studying film in NID, which was filmmaking is a lie to make the viewer realize a truth about themselves. Okay, I don't remember who said this clearly, but the reason why I wanted to put this quote out here is because a lot of the memories that we live with about food in today's context of the dialogue, uh, a lot of them are not accurate. A lot of them are not, factual. A lot of them have so many uh, emotion and memories connected to it that they can get uh, be shaped or morphed or the way you want to feel about it right now rather than what it actually was. But the beautiful part about it is that it doesn't matter if it wasn't factual at all anymore, but the fact that it still evokes the same emotion that you felt 20 years ago or 5 years ago or 45 years ago is what is more important than for it to be factual in terms of when we call it a memory. So that was the starting point for me to start, um, documenting recipes in a way that they are not just uh, a step by step guide on how to cook something, but it can be something more than that. Like, for example, I remember in 2017 or 18, I started documenting. um I wanted to start to document uh, recipes of pickles which my grandmother makes at home. And I remember I sat with her one afternoon and I wrote down half a recipe, and then I got like a call from some client, and then I ran away for that call. And I remember for about 3 or 4 years after that, uh, that half a recipe never got completed. But me and my grandmother always kept on talking about how we want to finish writing that. And over those 4 years, the story of that recipe changed so much about like how my grandmother learned it, or like where she ate it, or where she saw it, or in whose wedding did she taste it for the first time. And eventually, what happened is that in the lockdown, she passed away. And I was left with just half of that recipe of like a pickle. And which is when the first project that I took upon came into its presence, because I remember like 3 days into my grandmother's death, I was like a little, I was having this candid conversation with my mom, and I was like, hey, listen, you are also, sooner or later, you'll die, and I will be left with no recipe whatsoever. And I really want to, document and just for keepsake at that point of time in the lockdown, I wanted to have some kind of an archive which me and my cousins could look back to and recreate those recipes if we ever wanted to feel at home or missed our parents or our grandparents, or like when we are all together during a summer vacation. So, and it was this was around July when I started doing this, and the monsoons in Bombay had started, which is why this collection of videos was called Avre Varsad, which is a very it's a very common and popular poem which all Gujarati kids learn to recite when they are small, and it's like a poem about the rain and the coming of rain and what all you eat during the rain. So I am going to share a link to this. The trailer of this series. It's a small series. The entire series is also available on YouTube for you guys to watch. Uh, but for now, I'm just sharing the trailer. If you could watch link one, which I have put in the chat box, and then let me know once you guys have watched it.
Yeah, Nihar. I mean, I have seen this, and I think I've seen a couple of the other videos also. I think sometime, uh, I think just when they came out, I think because I know a few food bloggers and also I mean, I think what you said about that lie and how it makes you realize something about yourself is very true. Because when I saw the videos, I was thinking um, it it creates the atmosphere. It creates the atmosphere for one to kind of go inside and say, you know, I could be talking about this in that same space. It may not be the same
Yeah.
recipe, but it could be the same mental space that I was in while I was talking about it. So I think, I mean, filmmaking wise, I was super impressed with what you've done over there, because I think films have to do that, more than just narrate
Yeah.
a story.
So the reason, anyway, let other people come back. I will answer your question.
No, it's not even a question. I kind of just you can respond
Yeah.
if you want to,
No,
but
no,
yeah,
I have, yeah, I meant I will reflect on
yeah,
what you said.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the main reason why I wanted to share this trailer is also because, when you are looking at it, you suddenly start this go back into what your childhood kitchens were like, or what you ate during the monsoons, and it starts to uh, evoke certain emotions and memories within everyone who's watching about their memories associated with food. And but the reality of this archiving or documenting was completely different, because it was, me constantly making my mom do the same step again and again because I didn't get the shot right, or like, adding music, adding the sound of thunder, adding some kind of like sounds of frying and boiling and roasting, and all of that is a lie, right?
Hmm.
But it is all coming together to eventually make you realize something that rings true with yourself from your own life, which is, I just wanted to show this trailer for that purpose.
In fact, I'm
And
glad that you're bringing it up, because if you had not brought it up, that would have been my first set of questions, even though I've seen them before. When I see it now in the context of this workshop, but it's not really to say, I mean, of course, you are using the word lie, but I think for me, it is important for us as a workshop group to differentiate where archiving stops and perhaps curation and creative dissemination begins.
yeah,
So the archiving would have been this intention to note what the steps are, even if you don't do it like a book, what you
yeah,
rightly said. It's the performance of it, the act of it, and these are the steps which have to be shown. That is why even the masala box does become important. That it's a certain
yeah,
kind of a household, and there is already a lot of, honestly, a lot of historical information in just that masala box, because it's not
yeah,
something that's used by everybody, and even the cultures which use it, there is logic to who passes it on to whom, and you don't buy a new one, you buy a new one,
yeah,
so on and so forth. So once that is done as a point, as a part of documentation, okay, these are the steps to show. After that, as a director or cinematographer, you're taking decisions of how will you show it, and that's
yeah,
where line changes from one role to the other.
yeah. And yeah, so in terms of archiving, I have also, when I had released these episodes, I also started putting out the recipes and the steps, like the technical part of the archiving process, for people to refer to if they wanted to. So those are other smaller collections on my Instagram page where a lot of
Hmm.
the documentation has been done, whereas the video was more to document the emotion, so to say, you
Right.
know. So there were like two parts to it. Um,
And in fact, I would
and
also highlight that eventually these outputs will become an archive. So one is
true,
archiving of the
true.
past recipes, or which you're doing as a stepwise thing. But the fact that this series itself, when these recipes hopefully will not die out of, but if they do, because a lot of recipes that you've talked about are not commonly used recipes, even in the house also, forget in restaurants or somewhere else. So it automatically, the
Yeah,
compilation also is creating an archive, which is
yeah.
something I'm sure everybody has seen it enough. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah, yeah. So, the next one I wanted to talk about was sunlight in my kitchen. And this was a photography project, uh, which I took upon a little after I started doing Avre Varsad. And Avre Varsad was the first time when I realized that I wanted to start, documenting and archiving processes in my kitchen. But again, Avre Varsad was still at a very emotional, memory oriented. It was in that space. But very soon after that, what happened is that there is like a really big forest garden, park, whatever you want to call it, like a wild garden right behind my kitchen. My kitchen faces it, and that is my kitchen faces the east. So there would be a lot of sunlight early in the morning. I mean, it's still there, which comes from the east for till like 10:30, 11 a.m. And recently, a builder bought that plot of land, and like a big ass building is going to come up over there. And which is when I was like, okay, we just have like 3 to 6 to 7 months of sunlight remaining in the kitchen, because all of that is going to be blocked away. So again, through the lens of what the sunlight throws light upon in the kitchen, I wanted to not use any other lighting, and just document the processes that happen in my kitchen from time to time. So these are mostly documenting and noting down of recipes and even techniques, not just recipes, like not just fully fledged recipes. There are a lot of like pickling techniques and techniques to season your cast iron skillet, and how to uh, pressure cook different kinds of rice in different ways so that they don't clump together. So there are a lot of those smaller aspects also about cooking that have been archived in this project. um, and I'll just go through some of the images. A lot more of them are available on my Instagram, and this is an ongoing project. So till the building doesn't come up, uh, this project is going to go on. So till the time we have the sunlight, this project will continue. So this is again like like yeah. And again with this, the primary aim was to photograph all these processes, techniques, recipes. But that again led me into uh, archiving a lot of these textually. So even here, like the previous project, the visual medium came first, and then the thought that, oh, okay, maybe documenting this in text is also quite important, because the more I started putting these out on Instagram, the more comments and responses I started reading from people, and I started realizing that this is something that is not very common, because till the time I did not put it out, because I have grown up with it, and I'm sure a lot of you will also resonate with the feeling that, something that you've grown up with for like 20, 30, 40 years in your life, you just assume that, ha, isme to kya special hai? There's nothing special about this. But the moment someone else looks at it, when you have like a different frame of reference or a different lens to look at the same thing, you start realizing how special, not special exactly, but how um, how intimate it is to your life and to your way of telling the story of that material or that object or that dance form or that flavor, or that texture of the flooring or whatever. But yeah, so coming back to that point, that when I started putting it out, that's when I realized that, these are things which are very, very specific to my context. And it's maybe important to start documenting these things. So again, like a lot of the documentation of this process, I'm not going to get into like the technical bits, because all of that is available on my Instagram. Um, towards the end of this session, I'll share my Instagram profile in case anyone's interested in reading through a lot of the material. And then again, this last year during the monsoon, uh, I'm just touching upon like 4 of my projects, but there are a lot of other smaller projects related to food, recipe, culinary heritage, documenting all of that, which are ongoing on my social media. But these are just like 4 I thought made sense to today's discussion. So I'm just going through 4 of them. This is Smaran, which is again customs and festivals I grew up with every monsoon throughout my childhood. And I thought, oh, most people do this, you know. And Smaran actually means remembrance, right? So these are 5 very, very small festivals that happen between the 5th and the 9th day of Shravan in my household. And these happen in different formats in a lot of uh, different Gujarati communities. And they also, some of these, 1 or 2 of these 5 days happen in other communities as well across the country. So Smaran was, it starts from, Nag Pacham, then goes to Randhan Chhat, then Sitla Satam, and then the 8th day is like a break to prepare for the final day, which is Nodi Nom. And these are festivals, very, very small festivals where you celebrate and kind of pray to and give reverence to the presence of farmland, the presence of animals like snakes and mongooses on the farmland, and the presence of different types of grains and lentils in our everyday eating, the presence of fire. One of the days is dedicated to praying to the fire directly. One of the days is dedicated to the onset of the monsoon and the coolness that it brings with it, which has been personified as this goddess called Shitla Devi, because she brings a lot of coolness. And Shital means coolness, right? So she brings a lot of that. And culturally, a lot of kids who used to, get affected by measles or chicken pox were uh, said to get relieved when the monsoons hit, which is why this goddess is also important in a lot of cultures where they pray to those goddesses to uh, cure the young children of chickenpox or measles. So a lot of this has been explained by my mother through the 5 episodes of the series. And I'm going to, again, like the textual part of it has been documented on my uh, Instagram, but I will send you all one small 1 minute trailer of the series in case you all want to watch it. So you'll get an idea of what it looks like, whatever I'm talking about, what it looks like. Yeah, so here's the second link. If you all can just mute yourselves and watch it. Yeah. Can you all see it now?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Smaran was again about looking into what are these 5 days in the monsoon, which doesn't look like a lot of, it's not like a big chunk of the year, but for my family and especially for me, our entire monsoon schedule revolves around these 5 days, and preparations start like almost a month in advance. And why are these things important to celebrate, and why are why do we need to celebrate these millets and these grains, and why do we need to uh, you know give reverence to certain elements which are there on our farmland? And a lot of these questions started getting answered, and it has been documented on my page. I'm happy to answer questions on this once we get into a question answer. But yeah, this was the third project. And the fourth project was Baporyu magazine, which is this came about
from the lens of opening up this sort of documenting process to a wider community. So this time it was stories from all around the country. And this was like, even in like throughout college when I was studying film, I was really interested in publication design, but I never got to get into it. So this time I took it as an opportunity and a challenge to see if I could, bring stories from across the country together to create a publication. And one of the aims was to not become factual about food or recipes. The aim over here still was to retain the essence that I had in my videos, to kind of trigger memory and emotion more than what the technical step by step recipe is. So stories came from different people from different parts of the country, where they have talked about rituals which they used to do in their houses which are no longer there, or someone has written about improvisation that he's done on his mother's curd rice recipe, which has now become like his own new recipe, which he and his wife eat every week at the dinner table. And another article was about eating mangoes in Valsad as a child, and what were the memories related with that. A lot of these articles also come with recipes in them, so some sort of technical documentation has happened. But the main aim of this magazine was to, number one, create something which people can interact with without the interference of a digital screen. Okay, which I was feeling is becoming more and more important, because every time you are reading or interacting with something on your phone or laptop, there are constant notifications coming in, and the kind of stories that I wanted to tell required some sort of silence and switching off, because you had to, like, after you read every story, uh, there is a possibility that you would just put the magazine aside and go into like a 5-minute deep dive into your own memory about that certain festival or ritual or summer vacation or like a family trip or whatever you want to call it. And in that context, what started happening is I also started introducing whatever recipes that are there in my house, which I have started documenting. They started coming into the magazine as a so I've also put a note in the magazine saying that these recipes are not to be followed to the T. They can just be used as guidelines, and you can totally improvise based on what ingredients you have in your house or in your local market, or in whichever farmers market is close by to you, and try and riff on these ingredients, because recipes are something that should evolve, and they should be experimented with, because change is kind of the only constant if you want to grow as a culture and a civilization, right? And the other aspect of starting this magazine was, I remember 10 years back, if we were sitting around a dinner table or like sitting with our friends and opening everyone's tiffin boxes, there was a lot of curiosity. Uh, and a lot of that curiosity has been replaced with a lot of ideology today, where like, oh, we can eat this and we cannot eat this, and this is healthy and this is gluten free and this is dairy free. And I mean, it's totally cool to abide by these things if you medically have issues, but at least for me, it starts becoming a problem when these practices of eating become ideologies, and you start expecting other people to behave the way you eat and you behave, and which kind of also stems from an unconscious fact that you want to homogenize the culture around you. And I'm trying to go in the exact opposite direction with this magazine, because I want people to start rediscover the joy of cooking. Even if you're not good at cooking, maybe that's not even the biggest problem. The problem is that you don't want to cook. You just want to order the same thing from Swiggy every day. you just want to watch the same 2 cooking shows on TV and, keep on making the same food. And I remember I was talking to one of the chefs, and he, for one of my other documentary projects, and he brought up something very interesting, that we have about 250 to 300 ingredients in every city in the local markets, but everyone in India right now is eating the same 10 to 12 vegetables. The same potato, tomato, onion, garlic, French beans, cauliflower, cabbage, mushroom, broccoli. I think it stops at that. Everyone is just like constantly trying to create more and more recipes based on these 10 or 12 ingredients, because the somewhere the interest has started going down, because a lot of things are readily available. So whenever you want to eat something that is not this, you just open Swiggy and order. And it's not bad to do that, but I just wanted people to take like one day out of their week and dedicate it to cooking food by themselves, and get to know the flavors, get to know the texture of all the ingredients, and start enjoying the process of cooking, rather than just the end result, which is the recipe or the plate of food. And the way when I say we, it's me and my team, the way we try to combat this whole thing of making people fall in love with cooking again was again through personal stories, or personal anecdotes, memories, and emotions, which fall in the category of happy, feel good stories, right? Because we all have seen a lot of people online cribbing about how people are not eating well, or like, like the whole uh, connotation towards culinary lifestyle or an eating lifestyle has become mostly negative on social media. And people are constantly complaining, or like, blaming each other, or people are saying this is good for you, this is not good for you, this is right for you, this is not right for you. Even though a lot of that has its own place, I felt that a memory of food can be etched much stronger in someone's mind if it comes from a happy place, if it comes from a place of memory and nostalgia, and if it comes from the place of storytelling, right? Where you are maybe necessarily not even, which is why there are some fiction pieces also in this magazine, where the pieces are not necessarily talking about something that actually happened, but they will definitely make you feel and think about something from your life which has actually happened. And they will maybe try and make you cook something from your memory. And yeah, so overall the aim was to like using stories and using happy memories to make people start realizing and start knowing what they're putting in their mouth, because a lot of our eating habits today have become very blind and basic. I don't know any other words to describe it. They've become very, very non-informative. But again, people don't even want to get into information. So I thought like spreading information through the medium of anecdotes and fables and stories would be a great way to bring people back to exploring food in their own home kitchens. So yeah, that was the fourth project that I want to talk about. And this is the last segment that I want to talk about for like 2 minutes. A
Yeah,
lot of people.
I was also going to suggest that we'll have to wrap up in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the idea is that how do we do this? So I have broken this down into 3 things for myself, which I constantly keep on going back to. So one is, whenever you're cooking something, replace an ingredient and be within that constraint and see how the recipe is evolving. Try and put a different ingredient instead of just white rice, use red rice or use a millet. You will fail a few times, but you will come back with a much stronger recipe which has your memory etched onto it now. The next one is If you are going to the market, pick something that you've not seen before, or pick something strange. Force yourself to look for a different ingredient, and then start cooking with that, and then start documenting what is going on in that process, right? And the third thing is add a new color. Pick something which adds a different color to your to your recipe. If your recipe has always looked yellow, maybe try and make it look green or purple this time, and see what you can use to add that color into your recipe. How is it changing the flavor? How is it changing how you feel after you eat it? How is it changing, the reactions of people who are eating it? Is it bringing up different conversations on your dinner table? So a lot of these things can also start coming into your documenting and archiving of that specific recipe. And then you can start having fun with all of that. Yeah, I think that's
very interesting. I didn't realize when you said, but how you will give us some fun activities. I thought it was going to be more a methodological answer to how do you.
no, it's just
nice. I think perfect, Nihar, in terms of, I think, us needing that push, right, as archivists of projects to build these lies, not because you're trying to deceive people, but you're trying to create another experience or remind people of an older experience. And so this is very important to start thinking for archivists or people working with research and academic spaces, to start academic tools, not spaces, to start thinking of also the creative outputs and the forms. And I think we'll come to questions. I'm sure there must be many, but we'll first move to the next presentation and then we'll discuss both of these together, because I think it's also going to be a nice dialogue between the two. So we have Tirupa with us, and I'm choosing to use only a short name because I would really fumble with the full name, but you should definitely share it. Another contemporary, this time the context is we share the same regional space in terms of practice. So she's in Chennai, I'm in Bangalore. And I think I have moved to Bangalore, right? So for me, it was very important to start looking at who is doing what in the neighboring towns and cities. And happened to be visiting Chennai for architectural conferences or dialogues, and constantly coming to know of Tirupa and her team's work in terms of various kinds of histories. So it's a very interesting practice which sort of positions itself between history and heritage and continuously engages with a variety of communities and still chooses creative forms to do that. And I think I was told not to miss the walks that she takes, which I still missed. And I hope that I'll get to them soon. And I thought, again, for this conversation, both Tirupa's work and after lunch, we'll speak with Johan. This whole idea of walking and interacting with the city. So yes, this has also been curated in a way where we're changing scales with every presentation, given that the participation in the workshop is also working across different scales. So we are going through that kind of changing wavelength. And this was, again, thought through. So that let's listen to what it means to work with histories and then disseminating them at the scale of a city or a town. So with that, Tirupa, thank you so much for accepting the invitation and joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Is my voice audible? Yes. I was listening to Nihar. Thank you, Nihar. Wonderful presentation. And I was a part of the earlier presentation, but I couldn't be there for longer. So thank you, Ishita. I've been following your work, and I think one thing I keep telling everybody is whatever you do it with a lot of intent and do it with a lot of truth and integrity. I think everyone who kind of communicates regularly, and I really see that integrity in the work you do, and thanks for curating this. So getting back to my topic, inclusive creating inclusive histories and heritage. First, let me come back to why I started this particular word. I have Prasanna and Srishti, both architects and artists, who have been a part of my journey Prasanna has been a part of my journey for the past 10 years and Srishti for the past 3.5 years. And whatever work we see in our pages, they have a huge role to play in. So inclusive is not a word which I was very familiar earlier. And if you ask me if I have some presentations to show you today, I thought I'll just have it like a conversation and show you some things which are tangible, which I have here. And so when we started doing these walks, we go back to 2010. And I was in the architecture school. And for my thesis, I took heritage aspects as a thesis project, and I picked up Triplicane, which is Thiruallikeni, land of sacred lily ponds in Chennai. And when I went there and when we started documenting, I realized that there was a lot of reluctance, if I may use the right word, lot of reluctance to share the information. And when I was talking to my faculties that time, and one of the person I hugely respect, architect Kalpana, she has written the book called Madras, the Architectural Heritage, published by Intact Chennai, probably the only compendium of architectural history with complete drawings, and which is still available in the Intact premises. She just told me one thing: they have reluctance, but go deeper and understand why they have why they have that reluctance. And that was what I felt also. First, it was that angry mode where, like, why are they not sharing with me? And then second thing is a realization that why should they share with me, right? What do they have? Because we talk about history in a personal narrative, but sometimes lot of personal stories and history, and like Nihar was telling, I really like the word fables, right? Lot of these personal fables together becomes collective history, a collective story, and a collective heritage. What we feel proud about anything related to heritage and culture is always a collection of lot of these personal stories, narratives, point of views, judgments, information, which people were ready to come forth and share. So at that point, we started a small group from college, and we started taking people around the city to realize that there were so many other senior historians doing a lot of works, like Narasaya, who's the author of the book Madrasa Patnam. He does a beautiful port walk. It's actually not a walk, rather he takes people on the boat near the port area, and he's been doing it probably for 10 years. And Sriram sir has been doing a lot of work, historian Sriram, and works of S. Muttaya. And I'm consciously mentioning these names because they have been doing it for probably 20 years and 25 years. And these are the names we don't see in Instagram or social media pages, which made me realize that why don't we document that journey? The journey of the historians who were documenting the city, which we are able to continue documenting now. Right? Same way with Sridhar Venkatraman. Like when I was listening to Nihar, I got reminded of him because he's been doing food walks in the city for the past 15 years. And he used to do this interesting walk, which is taking people on different movie spots, right? Like when I say Madras or Chennai or Tamil Nadu, certain shots in movies, certain buildings come to our mind, right? So he has actually listed them down in an Excel sheet. Which song, which scene, what is it now? So it may sound like, why? What are we going to do with that? And I'm talking about his collective work for 10 years. And these are, I'm just mentioning a handful of people. And then there is historian Niveda Lewis, who documents and write about only women of Madras. Who was the first engineer? Who was the first botanist, probably? Who was the first person to write a novel? And that is her line of work. So all these have been happening for the past 15 years, 16 years. And most of the time, they may not be in direct public access. They're all in public access where people are the beneficiaries, but most of the time we don't see. And when you realize why we don't see is because they don't necessarily project the work also. And I'm again consciously, since we are talking about history and heritage and also curation, sometimes it is also important to know where the right work happens, right? where the right kind of work happens, and who are our collaborators, who are our associates, who are the different kinds of platforms we kind of collaborate with, right? That also gives us the credibility that kind of eases the reluctance I was talking about initially, which I mentioned initially, right? The reluctance of people to open up to us. Because when we started the research, it was for a location called Anna Nagar. For those of you who are not from Madras, it may seem, what is this Anna Nagar? And if you ask people in Madras, they would actually say Anna Nagar is a pretty new settlement. It has no history to it, is what the story we would have heard 10 years before. But when we started looking at the land records, it had this word called Naduvakkarai, right? Naduvakkarai. And again, the importance of regional language. It's not like particular language is important or not. When you work in a certain geographic zone, when you work in a geographically specific history project or understanding, language plays a huge role. Basically, Naduva Karai. Nadu is center, Karai is a bank. It may be a river bank or any bank. So then where is this Naduva Karai? Then the question goes back to which bank are they talking about? They are talking about the Kuam Bank, right? The Kuam is the river which runs along Madras. You drive down in your car, and every 20th minute you will cross a water body in Madras, every 20 minutes. You drive down every 20 minutes, either you'll cross a bridge or you'll see a water body in a distance, or you will actually cross over the bridge where you'll feel the turbulence below. So you will keep crossing. So what are these rivers? And then we realized the post-independent development of Madras started from these zones around the river. And we realized Anna Nagar, which was first called the West Madras Neighborhood Plan from the 1950s, was actually a part of the village called Naduvakarai. And what is the architect connect to it? Because when I was doing my bachelor's in the UK for a part of my course, they told us that this is the college Laurie Baker studied. And they said, but we don't have any archive, Birmingham City University, particular archive about his work, talking about 2008 and 9. And then I remember that he sketched, when you look at his work, predominantly a lot of Kerala-based architecture, documentation and all that. But then I remember one of my professors there in journalism class in the UK mentioned that he has also sketched a certain location in Madras, which I was always trying to find out. It was actually Naduvakarai. And in the year 2013, the book was already also published, Naduvakarai 98, which was not a book about architecture, but it was about a book. It was a collection of stories about Geeta Ma, who was the client of Laurie Baker, who always spoke about this Naduvakarai while they were designing the houses. And when she kept talking about that, he said, what, you should write about it. And she actually wrote a series of stories in a magazine called Onlooker. And so once Laurie Baker has asked her, can I read them? And he went back, he read them. When he came back in the next day, he had a series of sketches of how Naduvakarai was in the 40s and 50s. And that was published as a book later. Why I wanted to mention this is, I would have never thought Naduvakarai would actually have a Laurie Baker connect at all. And this is also important of why do we have to do deep research with primary resources. Because from my friends who worked in CDS in Kerala, Cosford in Kerala, and a lot of my friends who did internship there, I kept asking them, which was that Madras location? And my friends did intern. They mentioned, no, it could not be there. It could be some other place and all that. But then when we started looking at old newspapers in old libraries and all archival, we found this one small article where in an interview, Geeta, the interview was not even about city or heritage or anything. In a very, very out of context interview, she just mentioned a sentence that Laurie Baker has sketched my short stories, and she has put a small image of that front wrapper he made of the house she lived. And that is why we were able to find that information. I want to kind of start with this example because sometimes we really don't know where we will get our sources, where we will get our the kind of information we want. But to gain all this, and I think I'm using the word again, credibility is very, very, very important. Like in Madras, and we have a lot of researchers coming in, staying with us in-house to either research in the Madras Literary Society, in which I'm a volunteer. It is a 220-year-old heritage institution. We have more than 65,000 books here. And then they come here, and then when they ask, they said, oh, we saw this post in a page, we saw this post in a Facebook post or somewhere where they mentioned that the library is closed. And I said, where do you see these, or where do you get these information? They said, we saw it in an Instagram post. We saw it in a Facebook post. Nothing wrong with an Instagram post, nothing wrong in a Facebook post. In fact, for the Literary Society, we had something called 30 days of 30 days to know MLS, where we took it on ourselves. Like, what if the heritage building kind of gives the on the face answer to everyone writing about the heritage building randomly? So it was 30 things, and as if the building spoke for itself. It was like informal letter, something it would be like, don't just take a selfie with me. You will just get a photo. Just come, ask, talk to people about me, or else you'll just get a selfie. You're never going to go me, get lost. That could be one letter. That was actually one letter. So we have people, and then they come with all sorts of information, which is not even the rightly sourced information. And one more thing, this credibility or this reluctance is always like a track in a railway track. No, they run in parallels, reluctance and also the credibility. The minute you get credibility, you can cross the wave of reluctance. But the more reluctance moves, because people go with the number of followers in a page. Like, I know a lot of wonderful pages who have less than 100 followers, or not even like 10. And there could be, and they would send me an not just about the Madras Literary Society. I gave that example because I'm involved in the heritage management of the place. There are other beautiful heritage buildings, and they're all living heritage structures where people actually live, work, or they do workshops there. They have different initiatives there, and they would laugh and show me the picture and say, like, okay, someone has written a very sob story about it. Did you read it, DS? I said, how do you come to know? Like, people send me screenshots, is what they say. And not always it becomes a laughing story also. Sometimes it affects them negatively, no? Imagine that being a government institution, and someone takes a random picture and writes about, like, this place is poorly maintained. And there should be an eye, and it also comes back to, and I think that's the first conversation me and Ishita had long before, I think during the COVID time also, was about how do we do this when there is so many issues. So there are a lot of actual issues, but the new kind of issues cropping up are really very singular based. Like, when you want to write about heritage, and then when you want to write about a particular thing, knowing your primary sources, or knowing your base history, or communicating and conversations are very, very important. And I think I can use this in this platform confidently, because this is something someone told me. They said, I think people stopped. He's a very senior historian. He said, people should stop having savior complex. And then I said, what? What are you even saying? He said, no, only when you have that, you can write something about without even understanding any basics about it. But what my mentor Kalpana used to say is, always have a human view. You don't have to revere that, oh, this building is great, this is like wonderful history, or you don't have to say, oh, that is just an old building. You have to have that human view. That is when you can actually see. I'm actually in the Madras Literary Society today. Since an event is happening that side, I'm not able to show you the actual view of the building. So I think there are so many of these ethical and inclusive events happening in the cities, but we are not able to see them on larger platforms, right? Because they necessarily feel, okay, work is important. So what we kind of do is, yes, history and heritage, but we also document these initiatives. For example, since we are talking about inclusive heritage, Explore Differently is a wonderful organization who has helped us in the past 8 years to do inclusive tours. Like, for example, if I'm taking someone to a locality in Madras, for example, Chindadri Pet, which I've been doing it for the past 6 years. And if I'm taking someone to Triplicane, which is our 10-year work, and then the roads are narrow and then there is no wheelchair access, they will actually curate that experience to be more wheelchair friendly, and they would help us with sign language interpretation. I tried to get Chitraka, who's our sign language interpreter today, because she would be able to like, people go and thank her and say, because how many of these initiatives are sign language interpreted? See, one point of being inclusive is our ethics, reluctance, our sincerity, and all that. But there is this actual kind of inclusiveness which has to come from within. And when we feel this, the only way to go about this is to be open to collaborations, open to associations, open to different kinds of cross-cultural collaborations, or different language collaborations. But again, whom do we associate with? Whom do we work with that enhances our credibility. And I'm mentioning this very clearly again and again because, like Srishti, Prasanna, in the group would know. Now we have a lot of enquiries where for heritage trails and walks, and they specifically mention and ask, like, you are not associated with certain names, and then they clearly ask, no, we know that I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, plagiarism. So they said, okay, do you really? I said, no, we don't. And I see that as a constant thing in the past 1 year. And I was shocked initially, how can people mention that? They said, oh, then I realized how much ever this spreads, that also spreads, right? How much ever they feel they have a lot of followers, they have a lot of collaborators in association, there are people who do the groundwork properly to understand who is actually working on it. And sometimes they won't know, right? Like, again, going back to what one's historian Narasiya sir said, yes, it's okay for people to copy, at least copy it properly. Use the years right, use the name right. And that is something I have done also. Like, since Triplicane is my 10, 11 years of research, I have my students come back to me and tell me, like, ma'am, I corrected someone while they mentioned that. See, it may boil down to simple things like, what is Indo-Saracenic architecture? What is Art Deco architecture? But it can go into details like, which is the year of this building? What is the height of this building? What is the climatic control of this building? Who are the stakeholders of the building? So I wanted to mention these things because all these stories together gives a lot of this image that people who come to study or document or curate may not be trustable. And I think that is an issue which needs to be addressed in a collective way, because gaining that trust back, if this trend goes on, is very, 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 very difficult. And since we also work with a lot of artisans in the traditional scale, sometimes they are reluctant also, because they've been used to this, what could be the right word, manipulated. They've been manipulated for years, right? So to gain that. And these are some things I felt when Ishita sent me the topic. This is what I got from the back of my mind. But then I also have certain things to show you. So I kind of felt I'll show you the postcards itself. So Srishti is here, and she's the artist who has done that. And if you see here, you can say day 10 checks. And these 35, correct me if I'm wrong, Srishti, 35 artwork which was done by Srishti was a part of Instagram Live. and what I would like to call it as collective memory and nostalgia, where we went live every evening around during the lockdown time. We met during the COVID lockdown. So we would go and we would just pick up one color, probably, and not the color names. Color names also we felt should have the regional collect. We had Fanta Orange. We had Ma Pachai. Ma Pachai is basically, Ma is mango in Tamil, and Ma Pachai is the light green which you have. And then we picked up Sengal Sivappu, which is like brick red. So what are the associations? So all these artworks are what people said, and she sketched them live online. So each of them, so
So
we would keep chatting. Yes, Shrishti, yes.
yeah, it was basically two things coming together, where one, we were using colors as sort of the factor or the parameter to generate or sort of curate collective memories from different people, and we used art as a medium. So while some of these were stories and things that were, well, a little more common, most of them came from personal stories, personal heritage stories. So we had some of our audience telling us about some colors or some incidents that their grandmothers have told them, grandparents have told them. We had questions coming in terms of like, for example, I remember we did one color which was the Arvin blue, or the postbox red. So when we were talking about these colors, we were also talking about people, we were talking about organizations, we were talking about how they sort of play a role and weave into the fabric of the city, and how people engage with the city. And like, this sort of extended onto other things as well. So one set of artwork that we did was on colors in the city, and the other set of artwork that we did was just thumbnails. So there was a whole month where we were picking these different activities or different people that we would see in the city, and the activities that they engage in, and then sketch that. So it became a set of local professions that we were sort of documenting in this manner, while still experimenting with colors. So that was the crux for this entire archiving.
Yeah. Thank you, Srishti. And I really wanted to, she's joining us from Germany today. She's there for her master's. And this is what I started believing actually. When 10 things go wrong, there would be 100 things which go right. So, talking about, like, while she was talking, we were actually talking about the different initiatives in the city also. So, when we say, okay, this is not right, what is right? And then that's, if you look at our page also, I think Prasanna would have shared it in the message box, where we take students on walks on how to look at people, right? How not to look at people, rather. So a friend of mine was actually mentioning that deprivation study is a study where people go to villages to study, right? So are we using the right word? And again, inclusiveness starts from the words which we use, right? What kind of words are we using? And I hope I didn't overshoot time. And thank you, Srishti, for joining in. And then how else when we share these memories, right? So these are rubber stamps, right? So this is a toranam where you can see in it a lot of wedding decorations. And this is a kili toranam, which means it's a parrot toranam. And then there is a tea shop here. And then there is an auto, there is a share auto, and different things. What all these things mean. And what we try to do is, how can we get these to kids? And how can we get these to become more fun? So whatever we work on in terms of heritage, we try to add these little, what I would like to call as heritage punchers, where you have these small gaps where people carry a memory of the moment with themselves. And not just a souvenir probably, but as a small postcard. So we always give them these yellow postcards which people can carry. And I would like to close with Prasanna is in class, so he's not able to add his point of view. But when we documented Anna Nagar also, it was they would be 90-year-olds and 92-year-olds who would be talking about their memories of Naduva Karai, and he would actually be sitting in front of and sketching in front of them. And sometimes we need these documentations to tangibly record memories and nostalgia also. And when we collaborate with the right person, we can actually have beautiful outcomes, which becomes the collective history of the city. So before I close, something about Madras heritage I wanted to add, which few of you might know as well. All the locality names in the city has a meaning, right? But most of the time, we are not sure about what is the meaning. For example, Nungambakam, the place I'm sitting right now, it is actually Nunga Marangal Nirainda Pakam, which is like a land of lot of palm. Before I forget, Srishti, add your Instagram art page also in the page. So Nunga Marangal Nirainda Pakam, which is like a land of palm trees. And then there is Tenampet, Tenam Maram, which is basically a land which had a lot of coconut trees. So sometimes local language, your dialect, understanding them is important, because when you want to put the history together for a collective story, these aspects are very, very important. And I saw Kochi Heritage Project was joining. One of the pages I highly respect. And I also feel whatever we spoke about today, they have that truth and integrity to the work they do. And that is how I feel the collective history of a city is to be told. And as much as we think jasmine flowers is Madras, jasmine flowers is actually Madurai. They also have a GI tag. And as much as we think Madras is about sambar and idli, Madras Anglo-Indian beef curry is very, very famous. And then pork chops from the Anglo-Indian community in Madras is also amazing. So I think even in terms of food, even in terms of what we wear, the colors which we use and everything, I think getting to understand the roots of it is important, and that will open our minds a lot. Thank you to Srishti and Tresna for joining, and thanks to all of you for listening to me patiently, and thanks Ishita and Curating for Culture for having me and share these aspects. If you have any question, I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tirupa, for taking us through a different experience of walking down us the memory lane in a very different way. And also addressing inclusivity in such simpler words. I mean, I know it's easier said than done also. And of course, I have lots of questions to connect both of your conversations, but I really don't want to take away the space. So it's open to the room. Whoever wants to go in first with your responses, thoughts, questions for Nihar and Tirupa, please do.
I just wanted to mention one thing which she spoke about, where she said that, don't come take a selfie with me, because all you will be left with is a photograph. This is something I feel so much constantly whenever I go out to eat with my friends, or friends have come home to eat, because they are constantly they're clicking a photo of the food, and then while they're eating the food, they're thinking about what Instagram caption they're going to put on the photo, and they're just like losing what is there in the present, right? And it could have been so much more conversation about that food and the recipe, but it just gets lost in, oh, how cool is this going to look on social media? So
I think one of the things which is very interesting, because both of you have brought it up, so I'm just starting the conversation with it, and I hope others will jump in. This whole idea of how our practice is a sort of contesting what the digital brings in terms of experiencing culture, but also this need to still use it to communicate. And I don't mean it as a discrepancy or a hypocrisy. I'm just saying that how the purpose of it sort of gets questioned in the process. That on one hand, we need the digital for communication, we need for longevity, because all of these projects, especially through today, what we are going to listen to, I think I know of them even for myself, and then I've told others about it, or whoever has engaged with it, is because of the digital. And there is a certain sense of the experience of the digital, especially with Nihar, your films, or the kind of works that Yuan has been doing. And then Christina and Rocco will talk about how digital has helped them even collect data, for that matter of fact. But then also constantly being aware of the fact that it can take away the sensitivity or the slowness of experiencing culture. So where do you guys draw your line?
Uh, yeah. Okay. So before that, I think it was, if I have conveyed it right, I'm all for things getting digital. Yes. But my point was, how do you differentiate between a very clear intended initiative and I mean, I'm using the word commercial, but I don't mean that anything should not be commercial also, but a completely commercially gold initiative where it is stripping off a lot of work which has been done by collectively by so many people for so many years, right? So that is what I try to draw in. It is, yes, see, I would be happy if so many other historians or cultural curators or archivists come and join in the digital space. They talk about it. And then a lot of online, during the COVID time, a lot of historic libraries started online pages, right? We are able to see that because of the different posts which they make. But my point and that in that aspect was, as a consumer, as a social media consumer, what am I consuming? And if I have a set of followers who trust me, if I even share a post, for example, I'm talking about me, if I collaborate with someone, if I share a post, it is like they give me credibility, I give them credibility, right? But what if it is not the that way that I'm collaborating with someone who has not done some kind of ethical work, or is it a copied work? And that is what I was trying to talk about, because it's easy to do that, right? For example, I don't know if Nihar would have felt this, but some people would have randomly shared his video. And it's easy to do that, right? And say that, okay, I created this, or probably take the content, and they can never take the intent, the content and also the crux of the video, and kind of try to recreate something very, 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 very similar, and then say I was inspired.
All the time, all the time.
All the time. So why I wanted to mention this is it's very easy to do that, right? And I'm all for inspirations. I'm all for people getting inspired and all that. But where do we draw the line? For example, I told you, right? I consciously mentioned a lot of names in the beginning because all their works have been copied in the recent years. And I know when someone talks a particular sentence, or when you see something, no, when you actually have read that book or the author's work, you will know, I know where this is from. I know where this particular thing is from. So it is not about going digital. Going digital is the way, and it has connected us. See, in that case, I know Srishti because we met through Instagram. She used to go in live every day. And if there is one person or two person, no, she did it for, I think, 2 months or something. She'll just sketch and then she'll keep sketching online. That's how I met Srishti, her page. So I'm all for getting digital, connecting with people and all that. But it is also easier, and we are making a set of community very vulnerable. Those who don't have a voice, like, see, we are here because we do have a certain privilege and certain kind of voice, no, but there are so many of these initiatives, so many of these historians, so many of people who write who don't have that. See, at least like Nihar accepted, I accepted, Srishti, and all of us would accept. We would say that, okay, yes, it has been done, and we are facing that every day. But someone might not even know that their work is being copied.
Yeah.
And someone might know, like,
thanks to maybe the conversations we have had with archiving, perhaps very early on, trying to set up archives and stuff, where one of the lawyers had very nicely put it to us, this very very lawyer thing to do, sitting at the far end of the boardroom table, and that. I think that performance was also very important, where he walked in, because we had wrote to him about a lot of questions and concerns, and he started with the premise. He's like, let's understand the business you are getting into. If you're getting into public dissemination, it will get misused. Now let's talk.
Yeah.
And he said, drop it. If you can, just drop that concern. Of course, create scaffolding systems to safeguard yourself, because your contributors need to believe you, your readers need to believe you. But and this was told to us 10 years ago. So I right now find it very important, I mean, rather visionary, because you're right in terms of what's happening on social media and the amount of misuse which is amplified.
Yeah.
And I like.
See, and also it is about the narration. I'm so sorry. It's about the narration. No? For example, if you see, their source could sometimes be taken as a primary source for a new archive which is being set up. Imagine the kind of amplified misinformation which would go like a wave. And we see, for example, when you search, you would have sometimes found out, why is this lack of information? Why isn't there a point? And like I said, every name I mentioned today, they all were like, oh, let people do that, don't worry. Or but they are the same people who feel bad when it is sometimes, why is there a wrong information? So it is not even about taking the information. What is the and we use the very interesting word, no, commodification. Commodification of a heritage initiative is very, very important. But how do you commodify is the question. Because the important part here is setting the narrative right. And we would know that, yes, and like I said, anything can be copied, but our integrity and truth can never be copied in any way, right? But there would be some people who are starting up, people who want to get into this, may be completely broken. They would not come back again if that happens to them. See, my target is people who are starting up. And if they are like, okay, mine is copied once, twice, thrice, okay, then they will be like, okay, let's move back to something else. And because when personally, again, from my experience, 10, 11 years before, when I came into this interest of heritage or Madras history and all that, I had a very, very supportive peer group who were all people in their 80s and 70s who are very, very welcoming, completely welcoming. They would treat you like, okay, you want this information. I mean, it's not that they gave me the information, but they're like, okay, if you need this information, you have to go and search there. But now, if someone wants to do that, and that's a lot of conversations, a lot of students, like we regularly get mails for our ethics and heritage workshop, where a lot of students say, what do I do? What exactly do I do? They say, okay, they saw my sketch. They say they sketched something exactly the same. They said they sketched it, but it was seen and drawn from me. How do I handle this? So we are taking an entire cut-off generation, right? So there would be, after 10 years, there would be this exact 5 years of people who have missed out being in that space at all. So we will not feel that now. Probably in 10 years, we would actually see that, right? Of people not being here because they didn't, I think I can use this word, safe space to share dissipate information, and also to comfortably share what they want, right? So that is something but I think my sentence framing was a little wrong. Digital, yes, I'm all for digital. That actually gives you safety also. People can actually say, right, okay, I posted this first, and I have I'm not just Instagram, blog, or your Facebook page or anywhere. You can actually say that, okay, I have posted it first and taken it later. It's not just about, and I just read an article yesterday which spoke about AI is a threat. AI is not a threat. It is not a threat at all. Humans are the threat. And intent is actually the threat. Actually, the AIs can never be a threat. And I'm so sorry, I'm just overshooting your session timing.
No, it's okay. I wanted to know what Nihar also has to say about this, and then if others can at least raise your hands or put it in chat if you have thoughts. Okay, Shwetan. So we know that, yeah, Nihar, over to you in the meanwhile.
Can you repeat the question? Because she spoke about 10 things.
I was just
So,
asking about this conflict between wanting digital because it's the more versatile medium for communication versus
got it.
the scare that it is basically a sort of disturbing the immersive experience into culture.
No, I feel like definitely, as she said, uh, having a digital platform, there's no doubt that you have to have it right now because that is the most accessible form and that is the most accepted form also. But for example, what we did with Vaporyu is we have split it into two things. Digital is for things which you will enjoy more digitally, which is photographs and videos. Okay. And things which should be consumed digitally. And for the magazine, for the print, we have specifically very carefully selected stories which can only be enjoyed without notifications popping up on your screen. And you have to have some amount of like 15 minutes of silence or 10 minutes of silence to enjoy reading that. And I feel like it's like, you know, how in like most of our design schools, initially we were taught that let the content dictate what the form is going to be,
Right.
you know. So once you have the content in front of you, you can then it's easy to,
Right.
you know, kind of, and if it is not very easy, then like speak to like take opinions from 3 4 people and see how they enjoy interacting it with more. Or the thing that I have done is I initially like 3 4 years ago when I very at a nascent stage, what I did is I just like took public opinion, like not took public opinion, but I followed Instagram analytics to see what kind of content is working better on digital, what kind of content is working more on a Instagram live, what is working better as a photo, what is working better as a text, you know. So some amount of research has to go into this because we always get into a process with a lot of assumptions. So what we also as a team would do is like every time getting into a project, we would list down 6 or 8 assumptions that we had. How are people going to react? How is you know, this going to look like? Like whatever assumptions you have about a project, if you're going for research, what are we going to find on ground? What kind of recipes are we going to find? What kind of music are we going to find? What kind of language are we going to find? And then we go and try to combat each and every assumption. That okay, this was a right assumption, this was a wrong assumption, this was a wrong assumption, you know. And if we can get that same thing in the process of deciding what format to use for our stories or for our documentation or archiving, I think, see, at the end of the day, to make it publicly possible for people to consume on a large scale, digital should be the right way to go. But there are some things which might be better as an audio, some things that might be better as a video, some better as like physical text in your hand. So it's like you need the content to decide it for, I mean, what form it wants to take. And you can't go the other way. मैं सिर्फ digital करूँगा, तो उसमें I want to stuff everything, you know. Then it kind of loses the point.
Very nicely answered, both of you. I think I know we would have arrived this at the same answer that we need to strike a balance. But I think saying it in the words that you guys have said it really helps. That it's not about choosing one over the other. And I think the other important part which you have put in is the idea of research. That the whole idea that public dissemination is happening as of, I mean, somewhere at least this idea persists that it's a form of an event or it's just a form of a creative outburst is also not so true. And I think that's one of the threads through the day. I am very keen on sort of reiterating that public initiatives must be true for other fields, but very specifically for representing history or re-narrating histories needs to happen with equal amount of research, if not more, as to why are you doing it, with whom are you doing it, how does your application behave. Because even for Instagram handles, just for everyone to note down, my handle might perform differently on a Wednesday evening than Nihar's handle. And that's got a lot to do with his network versus my network. So these very small looking things have become very impactful in terms of who is your audience and how are they consuming what you put out there. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate this through your individual responses. We can move to Shwetal's question. I can't stop. Okay. Shweta, do you want to read it out? It might be better because
So basically, like, I remember you saying a couple of times that, you know, you need to draw a line, you need to draw a line. But what I didn't understand is, what are we trying to draw the line on, or for what? Because I have, like, when my film came out, I don't think you were there when I was talking about my project. My film came out the next year itself. The Garba posters all had quotes from my film. The posters that were put in the city. Now, for me, so everyone, like, said, my friends sent me, hey, this is from your film, you know, and there was no credit given. But for me, I was happy in a way that, okay, it has impacted somewhere, you know. Now, the second thing that happens is that people have taken some part of my film, misunderstood it, and made an entire short film on it. Okay, now that is what you're saying, but there is no way that I can draw a line on it. I mean, it is wrong information and it has gone out there, but there is no way that I can control it, right? So I don't know what you mean by drawing the line, because who draws the line for whom, you know? And also, one thing that I have been asked multiple times is, where did I get this information from? Like, they want to know the website or the portal from where I have grabbed it from. And when I tell them that I went and I spoke and I and they are like, but can you just send me that? And it's just considered normal to get information for free in today's time. So, but I don't know if I'm seeing it as something wrong. I feel it's more democratization of information, because there was a time when knowledge was held so hard, you know. And so I don't know if you can give me more clarity on this.
Yes. So if I have to, I mean, I'll first finish the second part which you mentioned, and I think asking for sources and references, no, that again is a very personal thing. Sometimes we chose to, sometimes we chose not to, right? It depends on whether our source wants to be connected to the next person. Like, let me talk from my point of view. The person who shared the color coding for my lime plaster walls was 93. And he was a very friendly person. He was happy to share everybody and their numbers. So I gave it to 3 or 4 people. And I think after a year or something, he called, and I closely work with him. He's no more now, with him in the family. I used to. And then after 1 year, I think he called me and said, stop giving my numbers to architects. He said, you can, I said, what are you, why are you saying this? And then he said, no, they come, they take nice videos. They want all the composition. And they spoke to people who were outside my house, asked them who's the head mason, and they kind of did. And I said, do you have problem? He said, no, I don't want to share. So again, it depends on what kind of sources and references. So now coming back to, we chose to share. No, sometimes I add all my source numbers, not numbers, email IDs, because if someone wants to cross verify, if someone wants, at the end of the day, any historical initiative needs a follow-up. I think the best kind of research is where someone wants to follow your research and continue with it. That's the best feeling ever, right? They come up to you and say, I want to do a follow-up your research. And I think that's the loveliest thing. But here, what I'm talking about is kind of redoing the same thing you do in a maybe a little bit tweaked way and claim it as someone else. I'm talking about the claim here. And the Garba poster, I'm not sure, was it for a commercial initiative or was it, if it's for a commercial? That sometime is a very crossroad kind of a question. For example, when we worked with the flower sellers here, we took a lot of pictures here in Amjikare. They actually do our heritage walks. We are facilitators for the heritage walks, but our heritage walks are done by people who live in that locality. and her picture was taken and they used it for Women's Day. I'm talking about 8-9 years before. And she was very happy, she was excited, she saw that, okay, I'm my, the chief minister's booklet, okay, there is this picture of me. There was no credit to the photographer or anything, but it was a moment. I know it was not like someone would do that, but there were other instances, and I think Srishti put her hands up also. I'll just finish it quick. So there was other instances where they completely take the idea and they sometimes come to your talks, come to your walks, come to your initiatives, see it, record it. When you don't allow, kind of voice record it. When you don't voice record it, minute it. When you don't allow to minute it, remember everything, kind of redo it in a different place, right? I'm talking about that particular aspect. Yeah. And also quote, yes, sometimes they may use the quote and sometimes they may take the wrong information also. They not the wrong information, some things which are like underlined, and then they may assume and make some things. And I think we can never draw the line. Where we can draw the line is choosing our collaborators properly, choosing our associations properly, choosing whom we support, whom we don't support. A single share from us, from any of us, could give credibility to an organization which is completely doing not so right stuff. So that is what I was, and drawing about line, even I don't know how I will draw the line, because this is something I face every day and I get a lot of students also asking. So I leave Srishti to answer since she put her hands up.
I think mine's sort of going to be a summary and also sort of put forth my views, especially being a student right now who's sort of, getting into that space of archiving and documentation and studying in a country where plagiarism is seen as much of a crime as a murder is, right? So, I mean, it might sound very casual, but it is considered that offensive over here. So when we talk about this line, and also when we talk about digital archiving, as much as it is more efficient to get a better reach and sort of put forth our work out there, it also increases the vulnerability for someone to take your work and claim it to be their own. And at least as students, as researchers, there is a huge onus on us to sort of be the people who are ethical, to not plagiarize, to respectfully ask and take work. This is basic ethics that's there in research and in seminars, which again is not only passed on to those who are studying today, to those who are getting into research or attending workshops or any of this. I think, in fact, in India, there's a handful of institutions that would sort of put that pressure and focus on, the right ways to research, the right ways to reference, the ethics that's there in taking someone's work. And this sort of goes across for all mediums. It's not just about papers or films or artwork. It's about a lot of things. And like we've discussed before, there's a very fine line between being inspired by someone's work versus copying it. And I think the other half of this, so the other parameter to this, is about like films or even work, right? Copy to hone wala hi hai. Like, someone's definitely gonna take your work out there and put it out there. Some people won't even realize where your work is from, so they won't credit you. Some people won't credit you on purpose. Like, this is something that's always going to be there, something that we're all going to constantly have to deal with. But the difference in what kind of an action we take towards it, or what kind of emotion this gives us, is really based on the intent of the person who shared it or who took it without your permission. So when we talk about commercialization, when we see someone claiming work to be their own, that's where there's something that has to be done. But if it is another person, like for example, I see when we do these recce walks or of our heritage trails, I take some of my friends along, and then later on in a casual conversation over dinner, or when we meet other friends, it comes up and they just say, oh, I learned this from her, or like, I found this when I went on this walk with her. So in such cases, in such conversation, it's a spreading of information. It's more awareness about these events, about things that we're trying to document. But when someone takes it and says, oh, I'm the person who did this research and this is mine, and then that's when privilege comes in, that's when access to this work comes in, and then this work starts becoming very exclusive. So I think it's not really a clear black and white with a line in between, but it's a lot of factors that go into deciding how you deal with this.
Very nicely summarized, Shrishti. Thank you. I hope Shwetal it
Yeah.
helped.
I mean, I don't think there is a way out. It's we
Out,
have to
yes.
just do our work and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And also
And
I
hope
think
Sorry,
I think
I was just saying that hope that these kind of recordings being put out, because I also know these are discussions that usually happen as chai conversations or closed door conversations where you're really angry and frustrated. So the reason I sort of felt like elaborating on this one is because I know we're recording it and we can put this out there. This has happened even in the last edition where we were talking about ethics and privacy in a different context. And I think some of these conversations do need to become more accessible and mainstream. So anybody else who's looking at this as a resource is also thinking through along with us, rather than we doing it only when we get frustrated and between our friends. That's what I wanted to reiterate. Yeah, sorry, Shweta.
no, I'm saying we are living in the time of memes. Memes actually means same, and it means that, and there is a culture. And I mean, I'm saying there are people who think that that is how it's done. Like YouTube gives you the option of taking out 2 seconds or 5 seconds and embedding it into another video and making it your own property. So
That's completely different, right? Where the tools are being designed to fetch and cross-fetch information. That's
Yes.
a very different conversation which we need with the tech team.
No. What I'm saying is that there are a whole load of people who don't even know that they are doing something wrong.
I think she's talking about the mindset, right? The mindset of even engaging
people don't
in
know
this.
they are doing it wrong. They feel that's the way it's done, because you have reels, you have music in reels, which everyone's doing the same thing. They feel that's what the world is, that you're supposed to copy, it's actually the way to do things, is what people are beginning to believe, a whole generation of people. And we can probably use it to our advantage, is what I'm saying. I'm beginning to think that better to see it as an advantage than a disadvantage when you're already thinking of passing on information.
Right. I mean, to my utter surprise, we have really stretched into like long lunch hour. But I also don't want to leave out Geeta ji's question. So very short, quick responses if Nihar and Tirupa you wanted to address about kids and stories. Students, not kids.
Yes. I think about students, they are very interested and they really want to be involved, and they are looking for platforms to do that, right? And to keep them sustained of that interest is what is challenging. They come with a lot of interest, but how do we sustain their interest for a longer time? And I think they are interested. If the question is whether they are interested, they are very much interested. And especially when they know about different aspects of what heritage or history and all that, they are very, 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 very interested. But to keep them sustained in the interest, constant engagement with them is important. Just pointing them out to different processes and to different places, I think would add a lot of aspect to it.
Right. Nihar?
Yeah, I think
keeping them constantly engaged is the whole issue comes there, because they show the interest. They are wanting to learn. They are wanting also Gango to do something, contribute something to history and heritage. But after that project, and if you are not following it with them, because I also got so much other work, then you find that it has just fallen. I have to ask them, no ma'am, we were so busy with assignments, this thing, that thing. So I think we must also keep them engaged, so that it will be a continuous process. Thank
you.
Yeah, I think one very easy way to engage anyone into anything is just to make them realize how this personally resonates with their own story. That is one very, very strong way. Like if you can just make them emotionally invested, then no assignment will take them away. So,
And I wanted to add third point to that, which was the creative investment also. So one of the things I have been noticing with the way things are happening at Curating for Culture is to recognize what they are interested in. So if there are 5 parts to the project, to actually connect with the part that they are interested in. So this whole idea of this mass assignment, which I know most of us have dropped it, but we still have to drop it further. So if somebody wants to work with materials versus somebody else wants to work with music and somebody else wants to work with reading books, having components in the project so that, and it's okay if there are gaps then in the project because everything will not be touched upon. And whenever you find those set of students or collaborators or team members, they keep getting filled up is one of the other important things, that you help them grow in the direction that they want to grow. A lot of previously curated teaching was all about mujhe ye karwana hai, so I have to get this done, that is why the students have to do this, and that had not been sailing then. It doesn't sail now at all, given that students have definitely more choice in their pedagogy. Nihar, which age group connects with your content? And I think with this we'll close this session.
Okay, so I've had people from like 15, 16 years of age, right, to like 80 plus constantly. And again, like bringing back to the emotional thing, I think a lot of them have texted me saying like, how your mother speaks or like what all she's speaking about reminds me of my mother or my mother-in-law or like my grandmother, so much that these people are still, it's been like almost 3 years that I released those videos first, and people are still going back to those videos, making those recipes. They click photos, they send it to me, they send me photos of like, they send me reviews of what their husbands thought or what their wives thought about this recipe. So because that initial emotional engagement happened, a lot of this follow-up happened on their own, like explorations happened on their own. I didn't even have to tell them to do this, right? So that's what I'm saying, that in the beginning, if the hook of the emotional investment can happen, a lot of it can become like user generated also after a point. And then you can obviously guide them in what way, if this is right, this is wrong, like, or if they're just going into some other project based. So that guidance is always good. But
Great.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tirupa and Nihar. And I know even Shari's presentation must have sort of triggered a lot of these thoughts.
Thank you.
And everyone else's questions and responses is also helping exactly sort of be on track in terms of discussing what we are going to do with public initiatives in this area of work. And we shall keep the conversations going with other two presenters, Johan and Christina and Rocco. But for now, let's call this session a close.